Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat, and today I decided to be comfortable and sit in my bedroom to bring you this webinar. It's rainy and yucky outside and cold, so the lighting's a little bit brighter in here, and I kind of covered up my pegboard back here so you wouldn't see the mess of stuff. How are you all, my lovely soul family? I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are surviving the same as me, just day by day. That's all we can do, right? Um, yes, all these massive solar flares coming in again. I got a migraine on Saturday, and then I got another migraine on Monday where I couldn't see anything. Like, thank God they weren't bad because I do take rail packs for my migraines, even though it's the generic because my insurance company won't cover the name brand, of course, um, which the name brand always worked better. Um, generics just don't work the same. So if you do have to take something. But anyway, yeah, so I had two migraines within a day apart of each other. Um, Today, my sinuses, just everything, my third eye, like this whole area is just very, very pressurized, very pressurized. Yeah, and not being able to sleep. Um, Lots of things, lots of energies coming in. So I hope you all are surviving, surviving this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so a little bit to let you know too, like I did give my notice at work, and then my and then my boss brought me in and basically talked me out of it. So I'm still working, even though I don't want to. I really don't want to. Like, I'd rather have more time to be able to do some videos and put out more information for you guys, but I guess I'm going to be there for at least a little while longer. So anyway, today we're going to talk about Alex Collier's December 30th of 2022 webinar, number 173. So also, oh my God, I am addicted to these things. These, Ghirardelli peppermint bark. Oh my gosh. Like I wait every Christmas for these. I'm addicted to those. I could eat a whole bag. It's horrible. That and the Dove mint little chocolates. I tell you, I'm addicted. I guess it's better than sugary candy, which I used to eat all the time. Now I eat more chocolate. But anyway, enough about me. So Alex says, "Hi everyone, Happy New Year, belated Merry Christmas, and any other holiday that you may celebrate." He says, 22's been a very interesting year, and 23 promises to be even more interesting. And we're going to talk about the politics of ascension and human beings being in control of humanity. And essentially, what that means is that we will be making the decisions and, of course, current stat. So, this is what we'll be talking about today. He says, now, there is a significant amount of things going on, and I'm going to start out with addressing some of those things. There are a lot of people who are very, very anxious and upset that things are taking so long. And they're attacking, they're lashing out, they're visibly upset. They are concerned that another pandemic is going to be introduced, that we're going to have a nuclear war, and many of these other things. And there's still talk amongst some folks about multiple timelines. And then, of course, we have, says, is, he says, is the Earth a sphere or not? Etc., etc., etc. He says, can we trust the white hats? What's going on with our government? The attack on Gitmo. He says all these different things. So It says, the way I want to address this is to share something very personal with you. And besides myself, there is only one other person who knows this information. But I'm doing this to prove a point to all of you. Now, I don't know the wisdom of doing this, but I know it'll prove a point. And I know most of you all will get it. If you have followed the A information since I started speaking about it in the 90s, then you have heard me say and know that Mornay is raising his family and his brother's family because his brother has allegedly passed away. It says, well, up until going on 5 years now, says it's not quite 5 years, but it's going on 5 years. I was under the same impression, and there were certain restrictions put on him regarding information to share with me, and for the most part, that restriction is still in place. But he shared something with me and actually showed me a body in cryo, an Andromedan body in cryo, and that body wasn't dead. He was in cryo because the soul of that being, that body belonged to, was here on earth because his brother is here on earth on a mission. So he says, but the body is being protected by our family. He said that really quickly. Our family. He said the family. Okay. What does that tell you? That possibly that body in cryo that we've been talking about, he's been talking about past these webinars and people asking questions, maybe if we're in stasis somewhere and we just came into this matrix to help. So he's saying now this body is in cryo, and this is, I think, he didn't come out and say it, but along those lines of what he's been saying, I think it's him. He says, now, no one knew that. He says, I was the only person on earth who knew this. He says, a fellow contactee, a lovely archaeologist with a French heritage, shared something that she was told by Thorhan. And this was just recently about a specific body in cryo. See, I just got chills. It means it's true. And he kind of laughed and he says, and when I asked M about it, he just kind of smiled and he turned his back to me. And instead of speaking in telepathy, he said, well, we're all checking each other's work, which of course I just cracked up. I just burst out laughing because that was the response and he couldn't look at me, which is why he did it the way he did it. Which says to me, because Alex always says that we're checking each other's work, that's probably his body as an Andromedan in cryo, and he came here to Earth in a human body to help. So he says, I want you to know that they really are checking each other's work, which is why there is no failure point here. He says, now everything that we see on the surface is drama. It's all drama and theater. And I can honestly tell you that I agree with all of it. He says, I think some of it is just an absolute shit show. I really do. And I have voiced my opinion about some things. Do I think it's taking too long? Sometimes, he says, I do. Sometimes I think it's taking way too long. But in the grand scheme of things, looking at it from multiple levels of consciousness, this is actually happening very, very, very quickly. And if you really want to consider where the change is dramatically starting, it would be the merging of the timelines, the beginning of the merging of the timelines, starting in 2003 and the completion of the timelines around 2012. So technically, we're into this 20 years. I totally believe that. Yeah. Now, in that present, in that timeline, 20 years, he says 17% of the consciousness on this planet is already and working in the fifth dimensional structure. 41% is in a fourth density, either in or fully moving into or operating in a fourth density consciousness. The rest are in 3D, and with a low percentage of 12% who are in the second density. He says, and I can honestly tell you from this particular standpoint that 12% that's stuck in second density, the benevolence, don't give up on them, don't give them much of an opportunity to jump because they simply don't want to. Yeah, there are beings that just don't, they don't want to change. They don't want to grow. They don't want to do anything. Okay. So why put energy towards that when their soul is not on the path for ascension, right? It's not that they can't get it. It's just simply that they don't want to get it. So we have a significant amount in third density that are moving. He says their consciousness is beginning to open up and question that which they see around them. In other words, they're beginning to question reality. We have those that have crossed that threshold and that are moving into the fourth, and those who are operating in the fourth, who are questioning the reality. And then there's that percentage of 17, he said 17, 18, somewhere in there, that's already in fifth density. And they're basically planting the ideas, the new concepts of what life should be like here on Earth. It says now, that is not boots on the ground consciousness. That's us. I still say we're part of boots on the ground. We may not know it, but we are. He says that's Terrans. So, think what you will, things are moving along actually very, very quickly. There are some pockets of stuff to clean up. That is happening. He says on Rumble, there's a guy by the name of Sarge, and I watch Sarge a lot. I follow him on Telegram. Of course, I found him a couple of years ago, and I love him. He's on Telegram. It's Icons, ICONS. Used to be Icons International Consciousness. I forget what it stands for, but it's great. And he did something a day or two ago that the title of it is Hell Did Freeze Over. And if you get a chance to listen to it, it's about 32 to 35 minutes. It's a good listen. He says it's really good, and I like him. I think he's a really good guy, and he brings an interesting perspective that he's being told from some of his sources. So please look into that. Yeah, he's ex-military, so he gets information from his friends and stuff that are still in the military. So he does, and everything, like, I resonate with him so much. Like, he's part of the soul family too. So I love it. I love that, like, this soul family is like connecting with all the soul families that I watch. Like, they're connecting, and it's so great to see that. You're like, oh my gosh, I listened to that person, and now this person is, and now this person is, and now it's wonderful to see that. So says what's also happening that a lot of people are not aware of is that there are hybrid super soldiers coming forward and sharing their experience, sharing their genetic memory and the experiences that they have had living in multiple realities before the timelines merged. I know some of you know Mary Lee, but she has a website called cosmicbrilliance.com. Isn't that interesting? Yes. Oh, jumpy. Okay. Cosmicbrilliance.com. And she's got some people there that she's talking to that I know you're going to find absolutely fascinating. Because what's happening is this information isn't known to the masses. It's not known at all. But when you add these pieces of the equation of the awakening, you said, oh my God, what's happening is absolutely miraculous. So when you get down, you got to remember that what we're watching, a lot of it is theater. It says it's theater. And I don't have all the answers as to why it's been done this way, but it's being done this way. I do believe we're going to have, he says, do I believe we're going to have a cholera outbreak? No, I do not. Do I believe they're going to do Omega salami sandwich CV? He said, no, I do not. He says, do I believe we're going to go through another round of lockdowns and mask wearing and chaps? He says, no, I do not. There may be some lockdowns, but that's only because of the implementation of martial law in some places around the world and the removal of the elements within the local governments, state governments, and federal governments in those countries. And I totally agree with him because I don't feel it, I don't see it. I'm very intuitive and I'm an empath and I don't get any of that. So I am with Alex on that one. Says, now let's talk about Gitmo. And I know that's one of the questions, so we can strike that out. It says, if you've ever researched Guantanamo Bay, it's significantly large. It has a significant marine presence. If you were gonna jailbreak someone or take over the base, you need a lot more than 2 helicopters and 40 people. I mean, seriously, that's a joke, actually. That's a joke. And if they were serious about doing something like this, it was actually an insult to the Marines, if it even happened at all. That's a big if. It's very different to know at this particular time what's real and what's not, because there's so much stuff floating around. So what I want to say to all of you is, if you had absolutely no exposure to to any media whatsoever, how would you know what was going on? What other alternatives do you have? Intuition, right? Tools that you have yourself to have a sense of what's going on around you. That would be your intuition. Please, he says, don't forget to nurture your own intuition, to exercise it. Our ability to use our intuition, to remote view, to travel out of body, to be clairvoyant, and all other things. We all have those talents and we all have those abilities. Usually, the one we discover first. We dump all of our energy and focus into it, and we just kind of focus in on one thing as opposed to taking steps back and developing all of them. But to be more well-rounded, he says. It happens, but that doesn't mean that you still can't use these abilities. They're still not there because they are there. He says, we have the Brunson case. He says, have no idea what's going to happen there. It's obviously a loaded gun. It's obviously, says, it would finish off the deep state, at least here in the United States. Will they pull the trigger? I don't know. But it shows you, if nothing else, how vulnerable the deep state and the cabal is, the dark side. That's how vulnerable they are. And they have never been in this place before, not in 150, 200 something years. Okay. They seemed unbeatable, a Goliath. And now they are trying to bribe their way out of the situation they find themselves in. He says, now that leads me into the next thing, bribing. And so at this point, today is January 12th of 23, and we do know that the Supreme Court has turned down their case, will not listen to it. So what does that tell you? Yes, they can appeal, but military is the only way. And so we're just waiting. We're waiting, and as Alex says, all these militaries around the world will be synchronized at one time. They can't just do one at a time, okay? Or they would know in other countries what was going to happen, so they have to do it all at once. So we're just waiting. Again, waiting. Hurry up and wait, right? Says, in the last 4 months, according to the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, there have been $80 trillion in FX, foreign currency exchanges, sadly, all of that has been fiat money. And these countries are printing this fiat money like there's no tomorrow. Now, the people are not obviously benefiting from this, so we know that this is a crime spree. That's the head of government. Those that are corrupt within the government structures around the world are doing everything they can to protect themselves and their family with funny money, paper and ink, as Visayas referred to it. This absolutely assures the collapse of the fiat currency system. Now, he says, Jim, Willie, and Bix Weir, who are two very strong metals people that speak, both of them have been talking for quite some time, are of the opinion that the silver COMEX is empty. The only thing that's sitting in there is silver derivatives, which is toilet paper. Says that's all it is toilet paper. Sorry if my computer is shaking. My dog is on the bed with me and he's dreaming. And it's twitching my camera. I don't know if you can see him. He's dreaming. Oh my goodness. That's Nanook. Okay, so he says, so if the silver COMEX is empty, that means that if you haven't bought silver for yourself, you may have 2 weeks tops, maybe 3 at the most, to do something while you can still get it. He says, I'm not a licensed anything in the financial markets, but I'd like to think I have some common sense. But you can do something. He says, now, according to Bix Weir, it is his opinion that when this thing unravels, that gold will automatically double to over 4,000, and silver between now and the end of 2023 will be roughly or easily be $3,000 an ounce, which means with 3 or 4 pieces, you could buy a car or pay 6 months worth of your rent. It says anything, anything. Excuse me. So he says, okay, we'll get to that and the politics of ascension. So that's something everyone needs to be aware of. It's coming to an end. This old system, he says, and it doesn't make any sense to lament it. Absolutely not. We need to see it go because we need something that's actually real, something that is based in reality. This system was not based in reality. This system was based in a program of slavery, of enslaving humanity, of enslaving you, which is why you would lay awake at night wondering if you could feed your family or pay your rent or pay your bills or heat the house or pay your medical bills. All of this system was designed to do that, was to essentially to enslave and trap you. Bastards. Which is done all the while they created fictitious you using a social security card, and they are trading your life as if it were a stock. And of course, none of us knew anything about it. So don't lament this. This really needs to go away. He says, now, the concern is what's coming up behind it. It's justified to be asking those questions. And that's where we need to go. We need to be asking those questions, whether it's the white hats, whether it's the military, whether it's to the banks. It says we need this information now. So we know what to do and how to prepare for it. And I know that Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot, if you follow her, I love her, has been railing lately. Yes, she has. And I agree with her on a lot of things, but not all of it. We are in a war. If you don't know, she's been calling out even the white hats and saying, like, we we are adult enough. You can tell us the truth, tell us the truth, tell us the truth. And I get it. Like, I get it. But yeah, we are in a war, and it's not up to us, and it's the only way the military knows how to do things. It says, and there are pockets of enemies still around that can harm large amounts of people, humanity. So it's being done the way it's being done. What's really interesting is that there's some information that this cold front in one specific area where it crossed Canada into the United States was up along North Michigan. And just across the border of northern Michigan into Canada, there is a town called Hell. That's the actual name of this area. There's also a Hell in Grand Cayman, and I've been there. And you can you can send postcards from Hell to your loved ones. So I did that a long, long time ago, but it's very interesting. It says, well, apparently there was an underground facility there where a particular group of nasties went to hide. It says, and the storm came in and they could not get out. And elements of the 1st and the 10th Mountain Division cleaned that sucker out. Cleaned it out, he says. Now, what's interesting is that as that's happening, there allegedly were some soldiers from the 10th on the helicopters going to Guantanamo Bay. At least that's the report. I do not know if it's even true. Was it a show? Was it a setup? In other words, nothing is black and white. At the moment, nothing is. And that's because we're fighting a war. It says, now, it's interesting that humanity's reached this place where we don't trust anything. What does X-Files always say? What is it? Was it in the beginning of X-Files? If you've ever watched X-Files, one of my favorite shows. Trust no one. Trust no one. Okay. It says, and I think to a large degree that's a good thing. I do. Because what that's going to do is it's going to force all of us to go within and to seek what the truth is ourselves, to see what resonates, to use your own intuition, our own psychic abilities to find out exactly what we think about certain situations, whether we think it's true or not. Now, this is where we all have to go anyways. And this is where we're going as we jump from 3rd into 4th density consciousness. We will become more intuitive. It's a natural process. And as you jump from 4th into 5th, it says, well, you're not only intuitive, you're clairvoyant. You are psychic. You have many other attributes that automatically just line up and click within yourself. Because when you get to 5th density consciousness, it's only a matter of time before your 3rd strand gets turned on. And then it's click, 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 click. And now you find yourself in a very unique position. You now clearly see the entire field on the planet, all the drama, and you have the ability to see through all of it. You understand what's happening here, and you understand what's happening up there. Okay, so what happens technically is you automatically become an Alliance white hat, assuming you're going to assist humanity, he says. So now, this is where the politics of ascension come in. Though many of you are already in 4th, that some of you listening may already be in the 5th. Some of you may be in the 6th. You have a very unique perspective of looking down now into this matrix, and you may not ever do any public speaking, but it would really be of great benefit to all of humanity if you could maybe on blogs start sharing anonymously, if you choose, your perspective. Now, each of you has a background in a specific area of life. Absolutely. It is to those areas to which you can speak the most fluently about what it is that you now see and you understand. It would be of great benefit to share that knowledge and the things that you see and understand with humanity so that we can pass that down and share that information and knowledge with as many people who want it. And it can be spread all over the place, sort of as a lifeline to those who are struggling to, number one, understand what's going on the surface, and number two, trying to understand what's going on with themselves as they're changing on the inside, as their soul, their psychology, their likes and dislikes, their acts of forgiveness, their acts of compassion become more greater and are filled with more emotion. This is really, really important because there are people who are going through this process that lead a life they don't understand. They don't know how to ground this information or the changes that they're going through themselves. And we haven't even gotten to the history part. For example, if you look at the entire matrix that we had, that is in fact dissolving in front of us, we are all going to come to realize that as comfortable as those systems were, because they were known, when it comes out, how much we were trapped and enslaved in these systems. No one is going to want to go back to those. Absolutely not. Not. They're going to be discarded and literally thrown away. So, how is it that we are going to rebuild our civilization from the ground up? What does that look like? Okay. Now, for those of you who are in fifth, you may have input into that. Other contactees will be coming forth with information regarding this. Do not be surprised if some super soldiers or hybrids come forward for the benefit of humanity and share insights from living on multiple timelines that have now been compressed into one. Do not at all be surprised those of who are moving into fourth density consciousness, paying attention to your dreams, because I want to remind all of you, you have lived in other places, at other times, in other realities, in other civilizations before you even got here. You have the knowledge, you have the experience. We just don't remember them all here. But you nonetheless have it. It's not like you're a babe in the woods, because you're not. No one here is. It's a question of grounding what it is you do know and then working from that place and building your new skill set around you and around your family. These things are really going to accelerate here in 2023, and this is a really, really good thing. It may be fast for some, it may be too slow for others. We're going to get help, but humanity has to reach a place collectively where we are absolutely willing to take responsibility for ourselves, that we are not moving into fourth, upper fourth, and lower fifth in an attitude of being victims. Absolutely not. You're not victims. That's not going to work. Absolutely not going to work. It is imperative that we move into these challenges as the warrior. In other words, we don't see it as a challenge or as an issue, but as an opportunity to master and move forward, to move beyond. You all have the capabilities of doing this. All of you, all of you. Look, he says, we're not going to starve. We're not going to get hit by asteroids, okay? All of that stuff is to disempower and flip you back into the fear mode. Because if you're in fear mode, you're not creating your future. You are stuck in the past, disempowered, and the future is not behind us, it's in front of us. And he points up in front of us, out there. And that's where we need to be looking, every single one of us. We're literally going to have to start from scratch with the school system, with the food production, transportation, communication, with local government, state, provincial governments, national governments. He says we're literally going to have to start all over. But it's not going to be completely wiped out. That's why we have them out there. We have our mentors to come here and help us start that system. It's not just going to be, we're going to be left stranded and not know what to do. That's why they're here. They will come down to assist us and mentor us. He says now with the introduction of free energy, that is a massive game changer right off the bat, because that allows everyone the ability to not only survive, but to travel, to exist, to produce, to consume products that have been produced. It also means there will no longer be a need for at least the survival of the physical form. It says now, if you remember in some of the earlier webinars, going back to, I think, 2016, I told you there was a small company that had been working with DARPA that had mastered the cold fusion platform, and that for the price of $5 million, they could build a power plant that could power a city of 50 to 100,000 for up to 25 years for $5 million. This is what we're talking about. He says that twice. This is what we're talking about. It's taken them all this time to figure out and to figure out how to position it and begin the process of disclosing it to everyone. Now, if the deep state were in charge, he said we'd never hear about this, but they're not. So this is why we're beginning to hear about it, and the way it's being rolled out is rather antiquated. He says it is. But the people who are in charge of this, who are managing this, do things differently, aka the military. They do things differently, all right? They just don't take it to market, take out all these ads and say, here you go. Here it is, the latest and greatest model. They never do anything like that. That's just not who they are. But nonetheless, we're beginning to hear about it, and there's going to be other things, such as the, I'm going to say, medical beds, healing tables, whatever they're called. He says that's coming shortly as well, and it will be probably rolled out the same way. Slowly, methodically. Says now, if we want this to be quicker, then we, the people, and I'm referring to everyone on this planet, says need to be directly involved. In other words, we have to begin the process of talking, sharing information, finding out who the right people are in each of our countries to talk to, and to say, look, we want to help with this. We want to speed up this progression of disclosure and the implementation of these technologies. And we don't want to wait. Which, oh my God, I totally forgot to tell you guys. I had a dream the other night. So I had like, I don't know, call it astral dream. I was up there somewhere, but I've had dreams in the past where I've been in a movie theater with a lot of other people waiting for a movie to start. And it was an important movie, right? Okay, this was years ago. And then the other night, I had a dream I was going into a conference. And I don't remember where I was. I remember a man's face like staring at me, and I saw it on Telegram. I'm like, that's the face I saw, and it was it was Devin Nunes, the CEO of Truth Social. Oh my God, it was him. It was his face staring at me. I don't remember him talking to me, but I remember his face. And we were getting ready to walk into a conference, and it was gonna be about disclosure. So this was a couple of nights ago, probably like the 10th of January. This is the time of year like that I start getting all these really vivid, like cellular memory dreams. It always starts at the beginning of the year, and as the year progresses, it kind of fades. So by the end of the year, like November, December, like I'm hardly getting any of those kind of dreams. It's kind of weird that happens, but so I thought I would tell you about that. It's very, very interesting, huh? It says, so What is it that we can do to help you and assist you in getting these things done and getting these things out into the public domain? And that's what we have to do. We simply have to do that, and we have to work with them hand in hand. They have to build trust with us, and we have to build trust with them. We have to make sure we have all the right people, because all the legislation, everything that's been created no longer applies, because that's the matrix. All that. Because everything that we've been using until this moment turns out to be a lie. It's all lies. So we have to shit can all of it, literally, and start over. So this is an amazing opportunity to simplify, to make it stupid proof, he says, and to keep it as simple as possible. And less bureaucracy means less fuck ups. Now, does that mean there won't be opportunities or situations that will arise where we have to do some tweaking? No, of course not. But to get these things going, to implement them, wouldn't it be better to start with a 40-page than a 10,000-page manual of regulations? And if it's something like the free energy, well, it's a learning process. It's all going to be a learning process as to how we implement these things. Now, he says, this is the politics of ascension. So now we're getting into his politics of ascension. He says, all of these things free up our children and future generations to focus their attention on building themselves from within, not being addicted to all this garbage on the outside, okay? They mature from within spiritually, which is where the focus needs to be for all of humanity going forward. And of course, we start with ourselves, but for future generations, we're the ones that have to put all these things in place for them. As the indigenous people used to do, look and plan for things for the next 7 generations. We could probably do 10 generations because we have the benefit of alliance, boots on the ground, and who are here to help and have done this for not only their own civilizations and societies, but have also helped others in the same position that we're in, which is why they're here, because they have experiences. Doesn't mean they're gods, because they're not. Doesn't mean we have to bow and genuflect. We have conversation, open dialogue, Q&A, because they're not interested in babysitting either. And ladies and gentlemen, when you all find out who you are and who you've always been, you're not going to want a babysitter either. You're going to want to take the wheel of the car for yourself, and you're going to want to see what you can do on your own. I guarantee it. Because every one of you, even those stuck in 2D, are magnificent, magnificent beings who will love for an eternity, because your soul, one of the other questions on the thing, he says, is about clones. Apparently someone is going around saying 60% of humanity is clones. That's a ridiculous number. It's an absolutely ridiculous number, and it simply isn't true. And the percentage is in the single digits, if anything. So that's dealt with, so we don't have to go there. Says, so I was going across some old information and I wanted to share this with you. Said, sadly, in 30 plus years, I totally missed this myself, but I'm going to share this with you, and it's about crop circles. And I got this from Vaseus a long time ago, and I think back in 1983, I started sharing it in the early 90s. So this is Vaseus. We are placing many of the crop circles, however, not all of them. The issue is being confused. Our perspective is this: In your ancient past, the gods were returning from their expeditions along trade routes. Many different races had outposts to your race. This was called civilization. Your secret priesthoods have been at the highest levels withholding information regarding the symbols in the crop circles. They're appearing from us to make clear our boundaries regarding your free will. We will support your free will, but you must ask for our support. We have codes that we live by. The other crop circles are from those of Orion. They are and have been a calling card of sorts. Orion and your past would leave a mark when approaching the solar system. The secret priesthoods knew this, and then the priesthoods would start confusion and war and other chaos in the world and around the world before Orion arrived. Orion would then feed off the energy as an offering. Yeah. Your energy was an offering to the gods, unbeknownst to you. All the planets in your solar system have monuments on their surfaces at 19.5 degrees, both north and south. The reason is that this creates a polarity between the planets. Your moon, prior to being placed in your orbit, was polarized with Maldek. If you continue to follow the pattern of your solar system, you will all see planets are polarized together. This creates a sound harmonic frequency. It does in fact have a pattern. It can and has been used to hold back a race of loving, wonderful beings. You have been polarized to the negative polarity. Make love and respect, and that will short circuit all the codes. The planet will respond to your vibration because she loves you. 10% of you Terrans must hold a common vision, and that vision must come from within yourself. Think for yourself. Pay attention. Remember, all you really have is each other. Do not lose faith. Be at one. That little bit reminds me of Tomorrowland. And even though it's Disney, I've talked about this before in my past videos. That sphere, when they go into the other dimension that's controlling all the negativity on Earth, that's the moon. Okay? Interesting. Telling you, if you haven't watched that movie, you need to watch that movie. He says, okay, that was from 1983, and I shared that in 1995. Secret priesthoods are not necessarily religious orders. It could be Masons, it could be bankers, it could be attorneys, it could be anything at this particular point. Those who told the lie and are under the control of the dark side. Because you see, if you're holding the light, if you are in the light, you don't have to coerce anybody. You don't have to use coercion. You don't have to use blackmail. It just needs to be authentic. And when it's not authentic, you have to resort to all this other stuff. It says, and that's the difference. That's why so much of our history is a mystery. And he laughs. Because there's no authenticity to what we've been told to us. And they had to bribe and blackmail everyone for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years to make sure all of this stayed secret and buried. He says, this is from June of 1996. This is some older stuff I don't believe has seen the light of day. This is on consciousness. And then we're going to go back to the topics. It says, the most necessary action now for all of you who are aware is to do what you are capable of, illuminating your degenerate societies. Consciousness is your scale. It will always provide balance, which does not ever fail. It speaks to those and tells them what to do and what not to do. To one or all beings that choose to be evolved. The administrators of your government were responsible for professional order, not for your moral codes of order. That's the key to your happiness. Terrans, it's in your hands. It's in your consciousness. We perceive that you Terrans have perceived your lives not according to yourselves, but according to others. Your disappointments are due to this fact. This kind of conduct of yours is what's limiting your races. Each one of you is a free soul, a free consciousness. No one is the servant or the slave of another, though the hidden ones would trick you into thinking otherwise. Mutual respect is imperative for a healed planetary race. Help is being extended to you, if you so want it, because of our genetic lineages to your races. We would like to be with you during your difficult times. Today, you are a planet and a race that destroys itself in ignorance. Your goal is to uncover the genuine human beings that have been lost deep within yourselves. Always be at one. Visayas 6:5 of 96 says, okay, so Alex says, now we know things have changed a lot between then until today. Says, we've gotten help. We have the help. He says, the assistance is here and it's been here. But again, this is where we have to step up. And even if it's just individuals, we don't necessarily need to wait for everyone to wake up, because we just simply don't know if that's going to occur. It could very well be that many are awake, but they're scared to come out. Didn't I say that? I've said that in my past videos. There's so many people in my town too. They'll talk about little things when they talk to me, but they don't really come out and say the whole thing. They're afraid to say things, okay? Because other people, they might think, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy. Well, everyone thinks I'm crazy already. I don't care. It says to show themselves, to appear different from the rest of the pack. And we all know what that's like. To be belittled and trashed and called other names, we know what that's about. But we have to rise above that. This next year is very, very pivotal for all of humanity. The military, the white hats, the boots on the ground have brought everything to a point where humanity can now take over its own creation. In other words, they've been removing all the obstacles that have kept us in bondage. There's a moment coming where there no longer will be any bondage except that which we think in our own head. It says that will be the only limitation we will have, is that which we see and hear in our own head, which of course isn't real. Those limitations are programs that were put into us in order to keep us docile and controllable. But that doesn't mean we're all going to go out and go crazy. I don't believe that for a second, and I don't believe anybody else does either. But if you look at how the white hats are doing, what they're doing, very slow, very methodical, that's great. He says that's what they were trained to do. That's how they're rolling this thing out, because this is what they know. But we know what we know. He says the planet has a destiny, a type of timeline, and that timeline is a destination of moving into fourth physicality and then fifth physically, with a percentage of humanity on her as well. We have to become responsible stewards of this planet. That's the mission, is to move with her, to be responsible and caretaking of her presence and her resources and who she is. That's the mission. And George Cavassalis said, about over 12 years ago, when I saw him in a conference at the Ascetti Ranch, he talked about the Earth turning into a star, that she will be turning into a star. And I did a video on this, if you go back in my earlier videos, that the Earth will be turning into a star. As she moves into fifth, she will shine. And we're going with her. We're the cells on her body, okay? We're going to be more plasma beings, more light beings. It says, and to evolve ourselves back into who we originally were before we fell back into time and come here for the mission. And along the way, free 3 to 5 other billion souls on this planet. He says that's a good mission. It's a really good mission. It's noteworthy, it's honorable, it's authentic because of the shift that it creates in the entire galaxy itself. And I've said before, not only changes this planet, it changes every planet in this galaxy, in this whole solar system. So it's a very big deal. As you know, when I called you Knights of Terra, that wasn't a slip of the tongue. The Knights were the original special forces, and that's what you are. That's why you were asked to come back here, back in time, again to do this. First time we didn't have the backup. We didn't have enough alliance backing up this program, this mission. It says now there's more than enough. In fact, it's a parking lot of the solar system of people wanting to participate, to say that they contributed. If they came and they're here and they're donating their time and their expertise and their energy in their meditations, their prayer work, their thoughts, their goodwill, why not give them credit for assisting humanity to jump from third to fourth and then to fifth? It's something all of us should be proud of and will be proud of. It is not dark. It is not falling apart. Oh my God, he says, I listen to this shit and it's a wonder my head hasn't rolled off my shoulders. They shake my head so much at some of the nonsense. He says, you know, but you can't convince anybody of anything. You know, they have to get it for themselves. And those who go negative, they genuinely need to look at themselves, because what they're doing is they're projecting their own fears, it says. And the best thing that we can do for them is to be the mirror and to just say, why do you feel this way? Do you know for a fact these horrible things are going to happen? And you know they're going to say no. So the next question is, why are you putting any energy into it? Why? Is that the outcome you want? Well, no, of course not. Well, then why are you investing in it? Why are you calling it forth to you and others? It's completely irresponsible, in my humble opinion, he says. He says, and then we're accused of selling hopium. He says, okay, I'd rather sell hopium than destruction, right? I mean, there's a payoff with hopium, and that's the fact that your dreams come true, that everything works out, and we excel and we evolve into greatness. Want something incredible, wonderful, as opposed to destruction. It says, oh shit, it's all going to hell. Not a tough choice, is it? It's really not. Look, all that I can tell you is that it's going to be successful. It already is. We're just playing out some things, and I don't understand the movie script thing. Not all of it anyway. He says I don't. I think some of it is just an absolute shit show. But okay. He says, we will have the opportunity to ask those questions at the end of this. When the curtains finally open, we will have the opportunity to ask that and some other questions about why they chose to do it this way. Says, you know, I was gonna read this, but I don't know if I will. It's relatively long. It's from Mornay, 225/95. It's called Fifth Density Starting Over. He says, it's on alexcollier.org. Go to articles and you will see Letters from Andromeda. And it will be the February edition of 1995. It says, now, the reason it's called Letters from Andromeda is during the initial dictations of Visayas and Mornay sharing information with me that they wanted me to share. And of course, I was writing it as fast as I could. And there were many times I had to go back and say, wait a minute, you got to say this over. And Mornay was always pretty patient. Visayas, not so much. And he would say, it's already in your head. It's already in your head. But it took me a while to actually get that, you know? And he laughs. He says, but anyway, I remember saying, what do I call this? What am I supposed to do? And Mornay very sweetly said, telepathically, he hadn't learned to speak yet. He says, this was early on. He said another letter, telepathically, another letter, because they had been watching us, and I took that as okay. So when I was working with John Robinson, when we first started to figure out how do we use the internet, because before that it was VHS tapes. That was it. That was all there was, you know, the live talks and VHS tapes. And so we called it Letters from Andromeda. That's how it got started. It was a little newsletter. It just got so expensive to do. Then we all figured out how to use the internet. He says, well, mostly. But he says, but it's a very, very good read. And I'm absolutely amazed because I've been going back over some of this. Says how relevant it is to right now. Says, you know, which makes sense because they're time travelers. They come from our future. Says, so it makes sense that it's relevant to this time. Says, let's see, what else do I have? Yeah, Nanook's over here still dreaming away. Says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, the original color of our sun is green. In case you didn't know that, that's the original color of our sun is green. And I looked it up and it said it's actually like blue-green. It says, and I'm sure there's a million questions, but for now, that's all you're going to get. And there are pictures of a green sun. Look it up. It's very interesting. I've seen it before and I've always wondered, like, is that just a filter or is that our sun? Our sun is green. On 1/23/23, Miss Elena Danan is going to be doing her own webinars. I would ask all of you to support her because she also has a great deal of profound information to share from the Palladians and et al. Because she's making the rounds, and you know, this is the time, the purpose for sharing the information is for you to gather whatever it is that resonates and put it in your own toolbox so that as you evolve and those around you see your ships and they can start to ask questions, you can pull out your toolbox and the tools that you have and share information with them that will be relevant. And you simply have to have faith and trust that you're going to do and say the appropriate right thing at the right time. This is not your first rodeo, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. It is not your first rodeo. And he laughs and he says, you got this. That's why you're here. You got this. And I mean that sincerely. We can do this. We absolutely are going to do this. Okay? Now, today's question and answer is going to be somewhat the same as we have done, but starting next week, I'm going to be choosing the questions that I want to answer. And I don't care how many votes there are. If it's something we already covered, isn't that interesting? I will just tell you it's been covered. If it's not something we haven't covered and it's something that's relevant to today, then I will answer the question. If it's something I dealt with 15, 20 years ago, I'm going to tell you it's already been answered 15, 20 years ago. And I know a lot of people don't have the time to do the research. It says, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of people on the channel here and on Knights of Terra, Shrooms of Terra, that have been following the information, and I know it as much as I do, and they know it as much as I do, or better. And just ask that question: where would I find this piece of information? or something that's relevant to it. And I'm sure there's people here who can help you with that. So it's the same thing I do on my videos here. When he does the questions, I say I don't write down all the answers or all the questions and answers, because a lot of it he's already covered. Yeah, or yeah, it just doesn't, it's not new information, so I don't share it. So it cuts maybe a half an hour off of the video that I have. So I'm glad he's doing that too. um, He says all the old stuff is available at alexcollier.org. James has done a tremendous job with the assistance of JP in cataloging as much as we have. It's there. We've done the very best we can. He says we're going to be offering the transcripts. We're going to be we're going to put together little booklets of the transcripts of the webinars and make them available for you as well, which I thought was really interesting, because here I am transcribing and doing my videos, and a few things I leave out, and I kind of he always says, a lot, or he'll say certain things that I kind of, certain words that I leave out or whatever. But it's funny that he says this stuff, because he's like, hopefully we'll have to do some editing a little bit, take out all the ums and stuff. Sorry about that. He says, and edit some of the curse words, he laughs, that I use out of my own frustration. But we're going to make that available because we want you to have that information. Just like me. And along with all the other information that so many people are sharing with their own experiences and contacts, these are historical archives. And 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 generations from now, our great 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 grandchildren will be doing term papers on this time. I don't think they'll be doing term papers at that time anymore. It won't be term papers as it's called. Maybe research, but he says, on us and living through this time, those of us that lived in the age of ascension. And that's what this is going to be called in the future, is the age of ascension. And we're all part of this history, okay? He said, so, questions, good Lord. First question. Since the cabal has lied about everything else, it's safe to assume they've lied about the Earth's population. Have the A's told you how many people there are on the planet? And Alex's answer is no. They've never contradicted any number that I've given. I didn't write a lot of these down because he was reading through them, and he was like, part of the time he was saying it out loud, but part of it was in his head. He was kind of just reading it himself. So it was really hard to follow and write down, but he was trying to answer as many questions as he could. I think they answered like 62 questions, so it was very, yeah, I had to cut out some of that. Next question, do the A's know of the inner Earth's communities? Something something did not be invaded by the reptilians since they live, or did they live in a hive like something? Like, I didn't get all that question, but basically his answer was essentially they protected themselves. The inner Earth people protected themselves because of a frequency of love. That's what it was. They repelled the reptilian dark energy by emanating the frequency of love. The dark side want no part of it. They, in fact, dissolve in such a field, he said. Next question, do you have any tips for recalling other past lives? His answer is, I myself do not. There are many people who do past life regressions. Danny Henderson is one who is very, very good with that. Says, I will give you a list of names next week in the Q&A of people I would recommend that do the work that I know is very helpful. Next question, tips for ascending physically, etc. He said, be in nature. Be in nature. Ground yourself. When you ground yourself, you let go of the stress, and that's the killer, is the stress. And if you can ground yourself and quiet your mind, then your mind and your subconscious isn't telling you to be in survival or fear. And when you can slow that process down and stop the chatter of survival, you will actually begin to hear your own frequency. And that's the key right there, is to hear your own frequency. Because once you know it, you can shut all the other crap down and just focus on your own frequency. And that's where the gold is. You are, in fact, gold, your light, and that's what you have to connect to, your own light. Next question is about rebuilding the world. Number one, what specific type and subtype of government structure do the Andromedans use from the local level on up, for consideration on what do we do next? Alex's answer was their motto is somewhere between a communistic and a republic. And what I mean by communistic is that everyone contributes and everyone shares. However, the citizens, the civilians, the Andromedan people themselves make all the decisions. They do have officials. I guess they're called, who will then direct the implementation of those wishes. Now, those are all volunteer positions, and they are all for a very specific amount of time. It is necessary that each citizen, each Andromedan citizen, participates in all aspects of the civilization. And that's why they go to school and learn all the sciences, because they have to learn to be able to participate in all of them. And they contribute their energy to all of them so that their education is not only complete, it's completely 360 degrees well-rounded. So if they're called upon to do something, to go somewhere, to fill a need, they know exactly what to do. They know exactly what to do because they've had all the teachings and the experience of doing it themselves. Something we should have been doing here since day one. Next question. I saw your presentation on Knights of Terra about the reincarnation cycle. Is this still active? He says, okay, I'm not sure I understand the question. There is no reincarnation cycle any longer, okay? That's one of the reasons why the birth rate has been dropping all over the planet. That's not just because of all the poisons. It's because souls are not choosing to come back in. That makes a lot of sense. They're like, many people are done having been here lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So there is no reincarnational trap. So if that's your question, we're done with it. We've been done with it for quite some time. Okay. Next question. Do clones require souls to be alive? Are they grown using time manipulation or super rapid cell regeneration? And Alex says, no, they don't. They're operating from a microprocessor that's grown in their brain. That basically, yes, they are. He says, yes, they are. A full grown can be done in 30 days. 30 days. Isn't that crazy? That's all gray technology. Gray, Dow, Nabu, that was all their technology that they gave to the dark side. And they did that because they cloned themselves. All you had to do was re-engineer the genetics for humans. Next question. What specific type of economic system do the Andromedans use? And Alex says it's a barter system. With other races, it's strictly a barter. When it's contained within the civilization, everything is provided. Whatever it is that they need to evolve and succeed is provided freely. Whenever it has to do with another outside culture, it's a barter system. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wonderful. I can't wait. That's Star Trek. You know, that's where we want to be. That's where we should be. Next question. In recent months, there's apparently there's apparently well-intentional people sharing some guidance that's expecting relatively soon major geophysical planetary changes in various locations. They are calling allotments where survival will be more likely. And JP says, referring to what you were saying, it doesn't seem worthy of attention. So I guess he didn't know if he was going to answer that question or not. And Alex says, I don't get any gloom and doom destruction. I simply don't. With all the assistance, he says, we have around us, whatever changes the Earth needs to go through can be minimized to the point where no one gets hurt or can buy us many, many years before these shifts have to occur. And I've said that before. I don't see any of that. Maybe on those other timelines a long, long time ago, but I don't see that we're going to have any major Earth changes either. They keep trying to bring in Yellowstone, and it's going to blow in Yellowstone and all the US. Hell, I'm 8 hours from Yellowstone? Like, if it went, yeah, that'd be horrible, but it's not going to. It's not going to, people. It's not. So don't worry about it. He says the planet is growing. She's getting larger, which means there'll be more land mass. And it also means she'll be able to hold more plasma, more light within her. But honestly, at this point, I don't see anything horrific happening. I do not. She's getting bigger. She's becoming a huge star. And when you talked about that, more land mass, and I said in my past videos, and I have that really vivid dream about being handed property, and that they've already given some property back to the native indigenous peoples here in the US. So I think, and I stand by it, I think we're all going to get property to be able to grow our own foods, have our own, whatever we want to do on our property, our businesses, whatever. It's coming. I think if you want it, it's going to be given to you. Next question. I live in South Africa, and there's one paranormal incident in the southern hemisphere that occurred in Zimbabwe a few years ago on the web. Do you or the A's have any knowledge for the awakening plan for the African continent? I've tried my best, but I'm referred to as a nutter by 99% of the sheeple. And Alex laughs and he says, Africa is going to play a major role in the spiritual evolution of the planet, and it's going to be the indigenous people. He says, so Brett, don't lose heart. Africa is a really, really big part of the shift that's coming. He says, there's a lot more going on there. It's just that the tribal people aren't sharing it because they don't trust Western civilization anymore. And to a degree, for a good reason. They've been shit on, but there's gonna come a point where all the scales are going to be balanced, and it isn't far off. And in that balancing of the scales, a lot of the anger, a lot of the frustration, excuse me, and a lot of the distrust will fall away. And what we will do is that we will all find ourselves standing shoulder to shoulder, wanting the exact same thing and wanting to move the exact same direction. He said, so have faith, it's coming. He says, have faith, it's coming. Africa is a continent of profound wealth, and that which was taken from them will in fact be returned. And that which hasn't, which is still in the ground, will belong to the African people. Okay? It's not going to be business as usual. Next question. Since the A's enjoy our instrumental musical creations, have you ever gave them any instruments and showed them how to make music with chords or simple picking, etc.? And Alex says, I've given them 2 guitars. He says, and the thing is, I don't even really know how to play. I'm just a strummer. But I've given them 2, and I understand that many of the children already know how to play it. So when I was on board the mothership, I had already given 1 for the museum, And I was asked by one of the children if there was another. And I did. I got them another one. So they already have two. And I have two more in my room upstairs ready for the next opportunity to share with them. He says, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. That brings back such great memories. He says, you see, the reason they like the instrumental is because they feel the emotion. And in their opinion, the singing distracts from the emotion. And that's just how they see it, you know? I mean, they're a telepathic race. So it's neither right nor wrong, and it's just how they see it. And I ensure that those kids, to us, they're kids, but they're 50 to 60 years old, and they still look like children. I'm sure they've learned all of our music already, he says, at least the classical. I think that's great. Wait till we all get to have a party together. Maybe we can teach them, like, this is how you enjoy, like, you listen to the words. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll be able to get them into the words. Who knows? There's a lot of great songs out there with a lot of good meaning too. Question: will computers, etc., still work in fourth or fifth dimension? And JP says, I guess he asked Alex about, because he showed him his new Christmas gift. So I don't know if it was a new computer or something like that. But Alex says, I don't know. Back years ago, I asked, and they said the only thing that would ascend is natural products. And if you've ever heard of Yellow Rose for Texas, in her video, she also said nothing of the old can go through with the new. I've also read, though, that only organic items, your crystals, stones, herbs, plants, anything organic will be able to move on. That's what I've heard. He says, and I don't know if that still applies or not. I simply don't know. He says, that's another really good question. He says, you brought up something here regarding frequencies, harmonies, and rhythms. He says, I once asked to listen to some of their music, how they create music, and I couldn't hear it. He says, I simply could not hear it, even though it was playing, and that's because our ears here in third density simply are not attuned to that high of a frequency. Now, I have a friend who's a brilliant mathematician. He's just a brilliant guy, he says. I have such great respect for him. He lives in Idaho. I wonder in Idaho. That's where I wonder where he lives. And he wanted some frequencies. There was a question regarding some frequencies. So when I asked M about it, his response was, well, why would he need that? So I shared our conversation, which Mornay already knew about. And he said, giving people the frequencies of the fifth density is something we typically would never do with an aggressive race. And he chuckled and he says, now, I haven't told him that, but he's listening. He probably knows it by now. So if his friend's listening to this, he knows by now. But it could be when we stop being aggressive, that information will be given to us because we're going to be moving into it anyway. So I guess the concern is, until all regressives have been removed from the planet, human or not, that's not the information they want the surface to have at the moment. He says, you see, ladies and gentlemen, there's layers upon layers. This is a multiple dimensional chess game. He says it really is. There's a lot of moving pieces on different platforms of frequency. It's not a simple, easy matter. It's just not. Next question. In fifth density, will there be a need to eat? And Alex says, yes, you do have a physical body. Next question. If there's supposed to be a big drop in population, is it still needed to build lots of dwellings with the humanitarian funds? Alex says, yes, it is. A lot of the homes that we live in are energetically dysfunctional. Totally agree with that. That's number one. Number two, they're not conducive to holding a resonant frequency, an earth frequency. It says feng shui, in other words, most homes are completely all wrong based on the energy frequencies. Number three, many of the chemicals, insulations on these homes is actually extremely harmful to people. So they would need to be rebuilt, and they should be rebuilt using more natural products. And these homes, in the technology today, using 3D printers is just remarkable. You could rebuild a neighborhood in 6 months completely with incredible homes that will last 50, 60 to 100 years or longer. In the inner cities, there are entire blocks of homes that need to be destroyed, and whether we rebuild them or turn them into nature preserves, says that will depend on the community itself to make those decisions. He says, but is there a need to build new homes, better homes? Yes, there is. There really is. A lot of the properties people rent from are owned by banks that have been involved in human trafficking. It may very well be that during legal proceedings, those properties will be ordered by the court to be torn down. So you see, there's a lot of things that have to be worked out. If they're going to be torn down, all those folks would need another place to live. So he says, and with free energy, with the ability to pull water from the atmosphere without plumbing and the such, people would be free to build a home anywhere they wanted. That's where your free property comes in too. You won't have to find property where you have to have, electrical lines here, plumbing lines here. You won't have to deal with any of that. You can live anywhere. You could live like on 100 acres and not have anybody around you. Wouldn't that be nice? Unless you wanted to, but he said, so yeah, there's still a need, and there will still be a need. Next question. Did you ever pursue the legal process of fake citizenship and how to get the birth certificate scams from the cabal jerks? And I thought about this before. I was like, why? And I was thinking to myself, why would you do it? Because if everything goes as planned and we get all that back and we get our sovereignty, you wouldn't have to go through all that. You wouldn't have to do through all the paperwork. So he did answer that question. Think alike. He must be reading my mind. Alex says, I looked at that and I decided we're heading to the dissolution of that entire structure anyway. So once that's gone and the organic republic is reinstated, I would be in exactly the same place anyway, but I would not have to deal with any imperial entanglements in going through that process. So I've decided to just wait it out at this point. It's not that I have any great wealth they're going to take, because I don't. And anyways, that was my decision, was to wait, was not to draw any more attention to myself than I already have. So he says, I do believe in the process. I really do. I truly believe that the Republic will not only be restored, but the entire world is going to become a republic, an individual republic, because it's to empower the people, to put the power back into the hands of the people. The republic is the way to do it. It's really the only way to do it. And I think everybody's on board with that. They are. They see it for what it is. We just have to be more diligent moving forward to make sure that no powers take that away from the people. He says, we've all learned a huge lesson here. We all have. We've learned not to take anything for granted ever. So we're going to be okay. We are. We're going to be okay. Lessons learned are bridges burned. You only need to cross them but once. He says, so, and I believe that we have learned that lesson. Even those who aren't awake yet, when the enormity of everything that's happened lands on top of them, they'll be right there with us. They will. He says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to do a question and answer next week. For those of you who've sent donations, thank you. I get that immediately, and believe me, it really helps. And I am so grateful to you. Look, it makes absolutely no sense to invest in fear and destruction. It really doesn't, unless that's what you want to create. Because what you think is what's going to physically manifest for you. That's how this works, and nothing can change that. That's why you're in third density, to learn that lesson. So you might as well think about what it is that you want and focus on what you want. And in the process of focusing on it, imagine you've already got it. What is it? They call that the image board, the dream board. You cut out pictures of what you want, or what what you want to manifest, and you put it on this board and you look at it every day and you say, I have it. I need to do that. Yeah. And he says, now, if that's fear and destruction, well, good luck with that. If it's not, then I hope you get everything you want. I sincerely wish that for you. That whatever it is that you truly want, that you get all of that and more. Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year to all of you. Belated Christmas to those I haven't touched. He says, we're going to be okay. Don't invest your energy in something you don't want, okay? This isn't hopium. This is creating reality. That's what this is, okay? It's creating your reality. And no one can do that better than you, because you know you. I can't create your reality. You have to create your own. It says, God bless. I love you. See you next week. So that was a good one. He answered some questions or gave some information like I didn't know either. So that was a really good webinar. I also ordered 2 books. I talked to a guy when I was at work. I think his name is Arthur. And when I worked for Eddie Bauer a long time ago, we talked then and talked about a lot of things going on in the world. And he came into where I work now, and we got to talk. And I'm like, I remember you, because I remember you from several years ago, and you came in and we talked about some of this stuff. And he told me to get this book. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna get this book and I'm gonna read, because I looked it up, and it's the Essenes, Children of the Light by Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice. So I'm starting to read this because it says, did Jesus really die on the cross? Who was Mary Magdalene, and what was her real connection with Jesus? Extensive new information about the secretive Essene mystery schools. It is one of the great tragedies of Western culture that Christianity forgot and eventually denied its Essene roots. Those roots are herein explored from this perspective of past life regression. So it goes into like a past life regression and some of the things that we were not told. So seems like some good stuff. And I guess Dolores Cannon talked to the authors, and they got a lot of perspective from her on this. So I'm very interested. I started reading the first few pages, so I try to read at least a few pages before I go to bed. And then I had to get the Cedars, Elena's book. It has so many pictures in it. Oh my goodness. There's so many pictures, different beings and stuff. It is thick. Look at that. That is a thick book. I'm not sure I'll ever get through that one. I don't know that I'll have time. If I didn't work, I would probably have time to read it, but I bought it and it's there so I can look up information. But I still don't see, no one has told me who this little being was when I was on Mars. I don't know, in a past life or parallel life or something, and I was there, and I was in this big glass dome, and it was like a lunchroom, and there was this alien being that had a very, very round head and very round eyes, but he had like human pupils and iris. Really cute. I mean, he was kind of cute, but his skin was very white and pale, like there's some little geckos that we had in Texas when I lived there, and they were like opaque, but they were like translucent skinned, like white, and you could see all their veins and stuff. And that was the same with this being. So maybe he was part amphibian. I don't know, but he was really kind of cute, and he had these tiny little lips and this tiny little nose, and he reminded me of a pufferfish. Their face, like a pufferfish face, but yeah, he had on these like headphones that were copper, and they were coiled, curled. I don't know. It was really, and he was talking, but I couldn't understand anything he was saying. But I really want to figure out like what species this creature was. So if you know, if anybody else has encountered that, let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for listening today. I love all of you. Please support Alex, JP, and James. You can go to alexcollier.org to get any videos or more information. Go to brighteon.com to Alex Collier Official 2. That is more of his videos. It's where I go and download. I pay for all of his webinars, and then I transcribe them to you. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like this, give it a thumbs up so you can share with other people and so more people can find us. We're slowly growing on YouTube. I get one or two even a week. It's great, and it's not about the numbers. It's about giving this information to my soul family, so that you can share this with others. Yeah, I don't charge for it. I don't charge on my page. I don't sell anything. I just want to get this information out to you. So I do have a PayPal donation button if you would like to donate. I've had several people donate, and I really do appreciate that. In the past, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. But you don't have to. So this information needs to get out, and people need to be aware. So I love all of you. Thank you so much. And I will get started on the next webinar. I'm not sure. He did one on the 6th of December for a question and answer, and maybe I'll just kind of listen to it. So if there's any new information, I might add that in. Like I said, I might start adding that into his normal webinars, but we'll see. Yeah. My husband had knee surgery, so he's home for the next few weeks. So I may or may not have a chance to get webinars made. Let's hope. I think if I just hide myself away in my room, yeah, I'll be able to do them. So anyway, I love all of you. Thank you so much. I just want to give you a big hug to all of you. Thank you. This year's going to be wonderful. It's great. I can feel it coming. Be like tough, really tough for a lot of people, but that's why we need to be the lighthouses, right? We need to be the lighthouses and shine our light in the darkness so those lost ships at sea can find their way home. So I love all of you. So say we all. Until next time. Thank you. Love y'all. Till next time. Bye.